20,000 years ago, somewhere in a frozen world we can barely imagine, a starving wolf walked toward a human campfire. It's a scene that likely played out again and again in different places over thousands of years. But imagine just one of those moments. Every instinct in that wolf's body should have told it to run. Wolves that got close to humans usually ended up dead. But this one didn't run. And researchers now believe that countless small moments like this one, repeated across generations, would eventually help build human civilization itself. Farming, cities, armies, even the couch you might be sitting on right now with a dog curled up beside you. It all traces back to encounters like that one by the fire. But here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. Scientists still don't fully agree on why it happened or even where. Some evidence points to Europe, some points to Siberia, some points to a place in Asia nobody expected. The origin of your dog, humanity's oldest companion, is still an unsolved mystery, and the story of how we solved parts of it is stranger, bloodier, and more emotional than you'd ever guess. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at your dog the same way again. And if stories like this pull you in, hit that like button and subscribe to Origin Tales, because we're just getting started. Let's go back further than farming, further than villages, further than almost anything we call civilization. We're talking about the last ice age, a brutal frozen world where small bands of humans survived by hunting massive animals like mammoths and giant elk. It was a world of scarcity. Every calorie mattered, every mistake could mean death. And roaming that same frozen landscape were wolves. Not the wolves you picture in a nature documentary today. Paleontologists believe these Ice Age wolves were among the most formidable predators to ever walk the earth. Powerful jaws, pack hunters, apex predators that feared almost nothing. It's a question that has haunted scientists for over a century. How did humans and wolves, two species competing for the exact same prey, become allies instead of enemies? The old answer used to be simple. Humans captured wolf pups, raised them by hand, and slowly tamed them over generations. It made for a nice, clean story. But newer research suggests something far stranger and far more human. Picture a hunting camp. A kill has just been made. There's more meat than the group can eat before it spoils. Bones, scraps, organs, all discarded near the edge of camp. Now picture a wolf, not the boldest one in the pack, but the most desperate, maybe injured, maybe an outcast, an animal willing to take a risk the rest of its pack wouldn't. That wolf edges closer, heart pounding, every muscle ready to flee, and the humans notice it, but they don't attack. Maybe they're too full, maybe they're too tired, maybe, just maybe, something in that wolf's posture doesn't read as threat. This is where it gets fascinating. Many researchers favor a theory called self-domestication, which suggests the wolves may have started the relationship, not us. The idea goes like this. The boldest, calmest, least aggressive wolves were the ones who could tolerate being near humans without triggering violence. And the ones who could tolerate it got the leftover food. More food meant better survival. Better survival meant more pups. Generation after generation, natural selection may have quietly rewritten the wolf's brain chemistry, favoring the calm ones, filtering out the aggressive ones. But this was only the beginning, because something happens when an animal is selectively bred for calmness generation after generation. Something nobody expected until a Russian scientist accidentally recreated the entire process in real time, thousands of years later, with an entirely different animal. We'll get to that. It's one of the most jaw-dropping experiments in scientific history, and it changes everything about how we understand what happened to those Ice Age wolves. For now, picture the slow transformation continuing across centuries. Wolves loitering at the edges of camps, humans tolerating, then feeding, then depending on them. Because here's what those early wolves offered that no human could. ears that could hear a predator from a mile away, noses that could smell danger before it arrived, speed that no human could match. In a world where your entire tribe could be wiped out by large Ice Age predators in the middle of the night, an early warning system with teeth was priceless. Slowly, painfully slowly, over dozens of generations, something unprecedented began to emerge. Not a tamed wolf, something new, a different animal entirely. And this is the point where the mystery deepens rather than resolves. Because for decades, scientists believed this transformation happened in one location, one moment, one founding population of wolves that became the ancestors of every dog on Earth. But newer genetic evidence has complicated that theory considerably. DNA extracted from ancient dog remains across Europe, Siberia, and the Middle East tells a messier story. Some researchers now argue domestication may have happened more than once, in more than one place, possibly independently, with different wolf populations converging on a similar evolutionary outcome. Not every scientist agrees on this, and the debate is still very much alive. Which means the dog sitting in your living room right now might carry the ghost of multiple separate origin stories, tangled together over 15,000 years of migration, breeding, and survival. Nobody could have predicted the discovery that nearly cracked this case wide open. In a cave in Belgium, researchers found the skull of an animal that looked wrong. Too short a snout to be a wolf, too wide a jaw to match anything scientists had catalogued. Carbon dating placed it at over 30,000 years old. Older than agriculture, older than pottery, older than almost every marker we use to define human civilization. If that dating and identification hold up, and there's genuine ongoing debate among scientists about both, that skull could push the timeline of dog domestication back further than most researchers currently believe. It would suggest humans were forming bonds with wolves while woolly mammoths still roamed the earth, while Neanderthals were still alive, while the very concept of a permanent human settlement didn't exist yet. Let that land for a second. Before we had houses, before we had crops, before we had writing, we had dogs. Let that sink in, and let us know in the comments what you think that says about human nature. Because if the oldest human alliance wasn't with another human tribe, but with a different species entirely, that tells you something about who we are. But this is where the story takes an emotional turn, because domestication wasn't just biological, it was deeply, achingly personal. In 1914, in a cave in Germany called Bonn Oberkassel, archaeologists uncovered something that broke a lot of hardened scientists' composure. A grave, 2 human skeletons, and nestled between them, the skeleton of a dog. Analysis of the dog's teeth suggests it had been severely sick, likely with a canine distemper-like illness that would have made it unable to hunt, unable to work, unable to serve any practical purpose for weeks, maybe months, before it died. And researchers believe the humans kept it anyway, fed it, cared for it through an illness that, by any practical measure, offered them nothing in return. That is not the behavior of people using a tool. That is the behavior of people who loved something. This grave, dated to roughly 14,000 years ago, remains one of the most powerful pieces of evidence we have that the human-dog bond wasn't purely functional from the very beginning. Somewhere in that deep, frozen past, dogs seem to have stopped being just useful. They became family, but that tenderness is only one thread in this story. What came next was far more complicated, and not every chapter is quite so gentle. As dogs spread with migrating human populations across continents, the relationship also became a story of conflict, war, and brutal utility. In ancient Mesopotamia, dogs were bred and trained for war, sent into battle wearing spiked collars designed to rip into enemy soldiers. In ancient Egypt, dogs were elevated to near-divine status, mummified alongside pharaohs, worshipped in the form of the jackal-headed god Anubis, guardian of the dead. In China, selective breeding produced small companion dogs prized by emperors, while in the harsh terrain of the Arctic, entirely different breeds were forged by necessity, animals capable of pulling sleds through blizzards that would kill an unprepared human within hours. The dog was being reshaped, again and again, into whatever humanity needed it to be. Hunter, guardian, soldier, god, companion, tool, family member. Sometimes all of these at once. And this is exactly where that Russian experiment becomes impossible to ignore. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev began a project that most of his colleagues thought was reckless, even career-ending. He wanted to understand domestication, not in dogs, where the process had already happened tens of thousands of years earlier and left no clear record, but in real time, with a completely different animal. He chose silver foxes. Belyaev's method was simple and ruthless in its precision. Each generation, he selected only the calmest foxes, the ones least aggressive toward humans, and bred them together. Nothing else. No training, no taming, just selection for one trait, tolerance of humans. What happened next stunned the scientific world. Within just a few generations, the foxes began changing in ways nobody had bred for. Their ears started flopping, their tails began to curl, their fur developed white patches, their skulls became shorter, more juvenile in shape. They started whining for attention, wagging their tails, licking the hands of researchers. Animals that had never been anything but wild foxes were transforming, physically and emotionally, into something that looked and acted almost exactly like a dog. Belyaev appeared to have recreated in real time something close to what many scientists believe happened to wolves over thousands of years in the wild. Selecting for calmness doesn't just change behavior, his results suggested. It may rewire the entire package, the floppy ears, the curled tail, the emotional openness we associate with dogs, all of it possibly a side effect of selecting against aggression. Many biologists consider this one of the most important domestication experiments ever conducted, and most people have never even heard of it. So somewhere out there, in the frozen wilds of Ice Age Eurasia, nature ran an experiment strikingly similar to Belyaev's, except it took thousands of years instead of a few decades, and the result was standing right beside our ancestors' fires. But turning wolves into dogs was only step one. What came next changed the world in ways that go far beyond companionship. Once dogs became reliable partners, they gave humans something no other tool could offer. A hunting range extended by miles, a perimeter alarm that never slept, a working partner strong enough to pull loads, herd animals, and guard food stores. And that last one matters more than people realize, because guarding food stores was about to become one of the most important jobs in human history. Roughly 12,000 years ago, something massive happened. Humans began transitioning from hunting and gathering to farming. This shift, known as the agricultural revolution, is one of the most important turning points in our species' story. And dogs were right there for it. Farming created something humanity had never really dealt with before at scale: surplus, stored grain, livestock, wealth that could be stolen. And where there's something worth stealing, there are threats, both animal and human. Dogs became the guardians of this new, fragile system. They protected livestock from predators. They alerted farmers to intruders. Some researchers argue that without dogs helping protect early agricultural settlements, the transition to farming, and therefore the rise of permanent villages, cities, and eventually entire civilizations, might have unfolded differently, or at least more slowly. Not every historian agrees on how large that role really was, but few dispute that dogs were there, working, every step of the way. Picture the chain reaction, even if it wasn't quite this tidy. A wolf approaches a fire. Generations later, something like it becomes a dog. That dog helps protect a farm. That farm becomes a village. That village becomes a city. That city becomes an empire. A decision made by a hungry, desperate animal near a Stone Age campfire may have quietly helped shape the trajectory of human civilization. Here's a question worth sitting with. If dogs helped make farming safer and farming built civilization, how much of the modern world exists because of an animal we usually just think of as a household pet? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of question that changes how you see history. But dogs were about to be pulled into something far darker than farm work. As human societies grew more complex, so did our relationship with dogs, and not always in ways that reflect well on us. In ancient Rome, dogs were bred specifically for combat, and some were forced into brutal spectacles in the arena. In medieval Europe, dogs were both revered as noble hunting companions of royalty and simultaneously treated as expendable tools by peasant farmers who could barely afford to feed their own children, let alone an animal. Breeds were shaped not out of affection, but out of hard utilitarian necessity. Faster legs for hunting, stronger jaws for holding livestock, smaller bodies for flushing out rats and vermin from grain stores, a job so essential that entire breeds, like the terrier, were engineered almost entirely around it. This era reveals an uncomfortable truth. For much of history, the human-dog relationship wasn't just about affection. It was about survival, class, status, and control. Wealthy nobility could afford dogs bred purely for beauty and companionship. The poor needed dogs that worked, or they didn't eat. What happened next changed everything about what a dog even was, and it started, of all places, in a Victorian drawing room. By the middle of the 19th century, England had grown obsessed with something that seems almost absurd by today's standards. In 1859, a small poultry show in the town of Newcastle added something unusual to its lineup, a class for sporting dogs, and to everyone's surprise, it became the most talked-about attraction of the entire event. Within a few years, dog-only shows had sprung up across the country, and by 1873, breeders had formed the Kennel Club to standardize the whole affair, drawing up written blueprints for exactly what a proper dog of each breed should look like. Suddenly, a dog's worth wasn't measured by how well it hunted, herded, or guarded. It was measured by how closely its body matched a piece of paper. Breeders raced to produce champions, competing fiercely for ribbons and reputation, and one breed in particular shows just how far that race could go. The bulldog, once valued for its raw physical power in the brutal blood sport of bull baiting, was reshaped by Victorian breeders chasing an increasingly extreme look, a shorter muzzle, a wider skull, a heavier, more compact body. Show by show, generation by generation, the dog in the ring looked less and less like the working animal it had descended from. This obsession exploded across nearly every breed. Longer coats, flatter faces, smaller bodies, larger heads. Breeders chased aesthetic perfection with an intensity that bordered on fanaticism. And within just a few generations, breeds that had existed for centuries were transformed almost beyond recognition. But this pursuit of the perfect dog came with a hidden and often devastating cost. Breeding intensely for appearance rather than health is, geneticists now widely agree, a dangerous game. Some breeds developed serious health problems as an unintended consequence of chasing a specific look. Flattened faces that made breathing difficult, skeletal structures that caused chronic pain, gene pools so narrowed by selective breeding that certain inherited diseases became disturbingly common. This is one of the more uncomfortable truths in the story of dogs. Our love for them, twisted through the lens of vanity and competition, sometimes caused them real harm. It's a tension that persists today as breeders, veterinarians, and dog lovers continue debating how to balance appearance, tradition, and animal welfare. But even amid controversy, the bond between humans and dogs kept deepening in extraordinary ways. During the 20th century, dogs proved themselves as something far beyond companions or workers. They became lifesavers. In both world wars, dogs served on the front lines, not as weapons, but as messengers carrying critical communications through active combat zones when radio equipment failed, as sentries detecting enemy movement long before human senses could, and as search dogs locating wounded soldiers buried under rubble or trapped in no man's land. Thousands of soldiers who survived the horrors of trench warfare owed their lives to a dog's nose and a dog's loyalty. One story that captures this era perfectly involves a stray dog found wandering a training camp in Connecticut in 1917. Soldiers adopted him, named him Stubby, and smuggled him to the front lines in France. Stubby went on to survive multiple gas attacks, warn his unit of incoming artillery before human soldiers could hear it coming, and even helped capture a German spy by refusing to let go of the man's leg until American soldiers arrived. He became the most decorated war dog in American history, and to this day, his preserved remains are displayed at the Smithsonian. Stories like Stubby's reveal something important. The relationship between humans and dogs had come full circle. Thousands of years earlier, wolves had offered early humans protection and warning systems in exchange for food and safety. Now, in the trenches of modern warfare, that same instinct, protection, loyalty, alertness, was saving human lives in an entirely different kind of battlefield. And it didn't stop with war. In the following decades, dogs expanded into roles nobody in ancient history could have imagined. Guide dogs for the blind, trained with extraordinary patience to become another person's eyes. Search and rescue dogs, deployed after earthquakes and disasters, capable of locating survivors buried under collapsed buildings using scent alone. Medical detection dogs, trained to sniff out cancer, detect oncoming seizures, or alert diabetics to dangerous blood sugar drops before the person even feels symptoms. Let that settle for a moment. An animal that started as a wary predator lurking at the edge of an Ice Age campfire is now, in early studies, showing an ability to detect certain cancers by scent alone, in some cases even before standard medical equipment picks up on anything. That's not just companionship. That's an evolutionary partnership that has been quietly refining itself for over 15,000 years. Which brings us to today, and to a discovery that might be one of the most surprising turns in the entire story. Right now, in laboratories around the world, scientists are using advances in genetics to re-examine everything we thought we knew about dog domestication. Ancient DNA extraction techniques have allowed researchers to sequence the genomes of dog remains that are thousands of years old, comparing them to modern breeds and wolves to trace migration patterns, breeding events, and evolutionary changes with a level of precision that was pure science fiction just decades ago. And what they're finding is challenging old assumptions in some fascinating ways. Some studies suggest dogs may have accompanied early human migrations out of Siberia into North America, alongside the very first people to cross into the Americas, making dogs quite possibly among the first immigrants to the New World. Other research is revealing that certain isolated dog populations, like Australia's dingoes or certain village dogs in Africa and Asia, may represent genetic lineages closer to those ancient, original dogs than most modern purebred breeds, whose gene pools have been reshaped so dramatically by Victorian-era breeding practices that they've drifted further from their ancestral roots. One gene in particular tells this story in miniature. It's called AMY2B, and it helps the body digest starch. Wolves generally carry very few copies of it because a wolf's diet is almost entirely meat. But researchers have found something different in most modern dogs. They carry many extra copies of that same gene. It's a change likely picked up around the time humans began farming grain. In other words, as our ancestors started eating bread, dogs appear to have evolved right alongside us, gaining the ability to digest the very same crops we were growing. It's a small stretch of DNA, but it captures the entire relationship in one sentence: an animal that adapted generation after generation to survive on whatever we survived on. The dog sleeping on your floor tonight, in other words, carries within its DNA a scrambled partial record of one of the longest, strangest, most consequential relationships in the history of life on Earth. And this is the part that connects everything back to today. As humanity now navigates the challenges of a hyper-connected, technology-driven, often isolating modern world, researchers studying human psychology have found something remarkable. Interacting with dogs appears to lower human stress hormones, and studies suggest it can trigger the release of oxytocin, the same bonding chemical associated with the connection between a mother and newborn child. In hospitals, therapy dogs are now used to help patients recover from trauma, surgery, and severe mental health crises. In schools, dogs are brought in to help children struggling with anxiety or learning difficulties feel calm enough to focus. 15,000 years after a wolf first tolerated the presence of a human near a fire, dogs are still doing essentially the same fundamental job, making us feel safe, making us feel less alone. Sit with how extraordinary that actually is. Empires have risen and collapsed. Entire religions have been born, spread, and faded into history. Technologies that once seemed like permanent fixtures of civilization have become obsolete and forgotten. But this one relationship between humans and dogs has endured through every single chapter of it. Every war, every plague, every revolution, every migration across every continent on Earth. Dogs were there. And when that thought really settles in, it forces you to reconsider something. We tend to think of history as something driven by great leaders, powerful empires, and world-changing inventions. But maybe the real, quiet engine of human history includes creatures like this one, walking beside us the entire time, so consistently present that we almost forget to notice just how remarkable that presence actually is. So the next time your dog rests its head on your lap, or perks up at the sound of the front door, or simply looks at you with that unmistakable expression of trust, remember what you're actually witnessing. You're not just looking at a pet, you're looking at the living result of a 15,000-year-old alliance. A bond forged in the freezing dark of the Ice Age between a starving wolf and a struggling human, neither of whom had any idea what their small act of tolerance would eventually become. Somewhere, a hungry wolf took a risk it didn't have to take. And somehow, moments like that, one helped shape the entire story of human civilization. So here's a question worth thinking about. If our oldest and most enduring alliance wasn't with another human being, but with a different species entirely, what does that say about what it truly means to be human? Let us know what you think in the comments, and if this story changed the way you look at the dog in your own life, hit like, subscribe to Origin Tales, and stick around, because history is full of stories like this one, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be told.